For 54 years, PAC has been a beacon of shared community to those searching for it. Whether it was a lifelong connection, a space to academically succeed, opportunities to involve ourselves in the Filipino community, or to simply learn our roots, we're all sitting here today because of that beacon pulling us in and making us crave more. Time and time again, I've reflected on what our club has provided me whenever I've needed something from it. But each time I've run for a position, I've asked myself, what can I provide it this time around? When I first joined our club as a freshman Gen member, I was so excited for this fresh start I was having. I was attending Gen meetings, going to the socials and fundies, and even got picked up by my ate. Throughout the first 2 months of being a Gen member, I yearned to do more and involve myself in something I knew I wanted to keep in my life throughout my time in college. I joined the PAC program, and growing within that role, I felt a sense of more community and how our club worked. I joined PCN to strengthen my roots and was part of the Nikling and an extra in skit. I then served as cultural chair last year, and during that PCN, I was in a Marklar dance and was even a supporting role in skit. I then ran for secretary and served as an e-board member that was essential to the inner workings of our club, while also being a fangirl for St. Gil during PCN. All of these experiences throughout PAC have led me to where I am right now, standing in front of you, accepting my nomination for president. I have become a culmination of all my leadership and work experiences from high school throughout college. But the first ever leadership role I've ever taken up, and has lasted until now, is being an ate. Most of my earliest memories and me gaining consciousness as a child was when I first became an older sister at 4 years old. Having no one to directly look up to when I was growing up, I was determined to be that role model for my 2 younger sisters. I've always had the drive to be independent, show up when my parents couldn't, and lead with grace and compassion. As I grew even older, I found myself taking on an ate role in other people's lives. If I could choose one thing to remember from my college experience, it would be picking up my outings, getting to know them, and being able to show them my constant love and support. All this to say, I want to be a president that everyone can look up to as an ate. Being a good ate doesn't only mean being nurturing and a constant pillar to lean on. While those things hold true, the best ates know when to be straight up and honest, even when it may be uncomfortable. Being that strong and knowledgeable ate figure for PAC is what I want to provide for our club. My time in our club has allowed me to become a well-rounded candidate for this position. As a patron, I already got a glimpse at what each position entails, and as cultural chair, I hosted some of our bigger events, presented during Gen meetings, was one of the 4 pillars, and was a resource of culture. Something that sets me apart from a few previous presidents is that I served as a pillar on CAB. Knowing that president is directly in charge of upholding the pillars, I believe I know how I can best support them because of having that perspective firsthand. As secretary, I not only served as a member of e-board, but allowed the club to function effectively by booking rooms, handling paperwork and documents, figuring out logistics, and assisting in event planning. I can confidently say that I am well versed in what every single role on this cabinet entails. I want to be able to motivate my cabinet, watch them succeed, and lead them through the highs and lows of our year. Along with my e-board, I have no doubt we can provide the encouragement and support all the new CAB members deserve to receive. I believe I can help build up CAB members to become leaders they didn't expect they could be. And before this speech, I have talked to basically all of the nominees so I could hear all their visions for their upcoming year. I strive to build that trust with them early on and leave them with a sense of security in my leadership. Seeing the passion of everyone every year has inspired me to keep igniting the passion I have for our club. It will be my turn to influence the next generation of people that hold so much care for our club. And I can't walk away now because I have so much knowledge and experience to share, and it would be a great disservice to not pass on that knowledge to cabinet. If you've noticed during my speech, I've always referred to PAC as our club. Not a club or the club, but our club. I want to make it known now that this is not just a club on campus, but our collective organization that we take pride in through our shared identity. Through this year's cabinet, I want to work on redefining PAC from being a club to our club. We all started as Gen members, and there's a reason why we're all still sitting here, even some past alumni here as well. We care on some degree to come back, and we care about what PAC can evolve to be in the future. To care about our club is to care about our culture, the variety of resources we have the privilege to provide, and spread that to people who show interest. My name is Hannah, and I hope you can trust in me as president to lead this future cabinet and Gen members of our Filipino-American Coalition.
We're gonna start with the questions. This is coming from Kevin Papa Chef. You're about to potentially be a part of your 3rd cabinet. Tell me some traits/qualities from your first and second cab groups that you loved and would want to continue to incorporate into your cab as president.
I think starting with the cabinet that I'm currently on right now, what I really liked about basically all the cabinet members is that they showed a good drive and personal initiative in helping out others at events. Even if they weren't personally asked to do it, they were able to step up and find like places or little like places to help out whenever like it was needed. Like even if the host didn't specifically ask them to help, they would help out and have that initiative. And then with the first cab that I was on, I think that the first cab I feel like they had really welcoming personalities, if that makes sense. Like, I think I feel like for my first year on cab, I'd like to say that we created like a presence where it was like, oh, if you don't go to this event, you're kind of like missing out, like you should really go. And I think that's something that I really want to bring into this upcoming year, is that sense of almost FOMO of coming to events and just having the Gen members want to come out to all of our events.
Okay. And then the next question is coming from Noel. What are critiques you would give yourself as someone who has been on cabinet for multiple terms?
I think the first critique I would give is to not be so harsh on myself. I think something that I really strive to do is like do my position to the best of my ability. And something that I know I'm working on right now is trying to not, when things don't go like exactly as I planned or how I planned it to be, I want to work on being able to be able to know what my next steps are correctly and not focus on how I react to it, but more so like how I can move forward from the things that went wrong. And I think another thing that I do want to improve based on people's critiques of me is to have more presence within a room. I think one of the critiques that I've gotten was people feeling that I didn't have a voice. But I think to have a voice means to have initiative, and I feel like I do have that initiative. And I know especially from this year being secretary, I think I did have that voice personally, especially if I was reaching out to individual positions. So I think I more so want to focus on having that presence in the room and making myself more known to Gen members, especially after being able to do that as cultural chair and having that kind of dwindle down this year as secretary. I want to improve that and make it even better than it was when I was cultural chair.
And then the next question is coming from Isaiah.
Being president often means making unpopular choices for the good of the club. How will you maintain the boundary between being a friend to members of your cabinet and being the authority figure who has to see them?
I think the first thing is building trust with everyone on CAB. I think that I've at least started making the steps to doing that by reaching out to the nominees for this election season. And I think I've also had experience with that differentiation of being friend and cabinet member with my time as secretary and being able to enforce those fines on people, even though I have good relationships with them and they may be my friends. I think another important thing is to always give a reason behind why I'm making these decisions or making certain decisions, because if I just make those decisions without any explanations or any reasons, then people can often feel like overlooked, or they might perceive it in a negative way. So I want to make sure that I'm able to provide justifications for any decisions that I'm making, just so that it continues to build that trust and communication between me and my CAB members.
Next question coming from Landon.
How would you handle a situation if most of your packers become inactive and don't show up in the middle of fall semester?
the steps you would take?
I would first obviously communicate with them, go in our group chat, or not even our group chat. I would start to reach out to each person individually, and if I can't get an answer over text, I will find them in person and I will ask them. And obviously it's not a mandatory, it's not mandatory for patrons to be at everything, but they do need to know that they did sign up and they were chosen for a reason, and I would want to check in with them and make sure everything's okay. What are the reasons why they're not showing up anymore, and if there's any way I can help them, especially if it's a thing where they can't balance their workload with PAC. I would just want to check in with them first, and then if those majorities still don't end up showing up, I think that's still okay, because I still know that I have a handful of patrons that are really willing to step up and provide and show that passion for the club, and I think I can focus my energy on giving them a good patron experience and helping them grow as leaders as well.
And then next question is coming from Jazzy.
What issues are you anticipating for this year's cabinet?
One of the issues or concerns that I had for this year's potential cabinet is probably just that interpersonal relationship that some people have with each other, and obviously only time will tell what can happen, and there's not much I can do about it now except for letting people know ahead of time that if they have any negative feelings, or there's a possibility that they will have negative feelings towards other people on CAB, I want them to sort it out now, even before we get the positions at PAC formals. And I've had this conversation with the nominees that I want them to set their personal feelings aside for CAB, because we're all here for a common goal, for the betterment of the club, and we should be able to set our friendships, or not friendships, but close personal relationships aside when we're dealing with PAC stuff.
Next question is going to Isaiah.
Respectfully critique Pat and Eli.
I'll start with Eli. I think Eli was a really good president this year, and I'm really glad to have served with him on e-board, and I think he did a good job of being a really good resource for knowledge, and was also, especially in the second semester, he was out there more and showing face more, and his genuine passion for the club. I think that's compared to the first semester is when it really shone. I think one critique I would have for you is I think sometimes knowing time and place for things. I think that goes into professionalism and also maybe PR training, but I think just knowing time and place for certain jokes and things. And then for Pat, I also really enjoyed being on CAB with Pat because he was just such a lively personality, and I feel for the most part, he was always excited to be at the events and always excited to be there. One thing that I would critique him on is I think knowing when to offer up his help, especially during events. I think there were times where hosts could have been overwhelmed with the tasks that they had for their events, and I think especially from the president. I think it would have been beneficial to have that support offered before the host would have to ask for help.
Okay, fantastic. And then next one's coming from me. So, which CAB members do each of the board members oversee? I'll have you answer that one first, and then I'll ask the second question.
So the president oversees the pillars, that's the cultural, academic, membership, philanthropy chair. The VPs oversee the PCN corps. The treasurer oversees the assistant treasurer, sports corps, and retreats and events. And then secretary oversees PR and historian.
And then second question, or second part of it, how do you, as president, plan to better facilitate this idea of e-board being mentors and a shoulder to lean on for the rest of CAB?
I think especially because most of eBoard is returning CAB members, I think also knowing them personally, I know that they would have no problem being that resource for CAB. I know that they're more than willing to take on their positions of being that figure for the rest of CAB, and they have that experience. I think emphasizing these roles that they have early on in the year so that they can create the group chats with who they're overseeing and make sure to trust them to check in on the respective people and create those bonds is important.
And then next question, going to Isaiah.
Being the head of a cultural club, you're going to be faced with taking stances on social or political issues that may occur during your presidency. What steps or process will you take to decide what issues the organization will speak about?
I know from past years, we've always held on the stance of taking a stance of neutrality since we are a cultural club and not a political club. But I do think that we have current events that happen in the world, and that's just the reality of how things are. We're not in a bubble, and I think it's important to especially consult the philanthropy chair about that because I feel like their position is the most knowledgeable on that, and I think that position is definitely a resource for not only the gen members but for CAB in us expressing our views on current events. And I think also consulting with e-board and also being open-minded to what everyone says about, or what everyone has, or everyone on CAB, being open-minded to everyone's opinions on CAB, and then making that decision from there of what we should present to the gen members and what we shouldn't.
And then the next one is going to Rochelle.
There is a chance you'll be leading a predominantly female board. How do you plan on making sure that these women who face challenges with being oversought will be heard and not disrespected while also being a woman yourself?
I think it's important to set that tone early with the rest of CAB, and I think this is also a concern that I brought up to the nominees that I've talked to, mostly all the nominees. So I think setting that tone early that I will not tolerate disrespect from other people just because I'm a woman, and I think me being a woman as president would set that tone properly of making sure that not just the girls on CAB are respected, but everyone in CAB is respected. I think everyone's voices deserve to be heard, and especially with the women on my e-board, I want to make sure that I check in with them personally because obviously I can relate to that experience of being a woman in power, and I want to make sure that they are checked in on too.
And then the next one is going to Isaiah.
Please name all members of one nation and what plans you have in rebuilding or maintaining the relationships with each other.
So in One Nation, there's PAC, PCN, PAC Modern, Zeta Phi Rho, Kappa Psi Epsilon, and Chi it's one of the sororities. Chi Delta Alpha. Those are the ones that I remember, but in terms of rebuilding that connection with One Nation, I think that personally I already have a good relationship with PCN, just because I've been active in it since I was a freshman, but I truthfully don't have as much experience talking with the rest of One Nation, and I think that's where I can utilize the rest of my e-board to help me make those connections. I wouldn't be delegating making those connections to like one specific person. I would ask for their help in how to connect best with the members of One Nation. And I think starting to go to more of One Nation's events and showing face early on, I feel like it won't be a problem for me next year because I already know my school and work schedule, and I think that I will be able to dedicate more time to actually showing up to a lot of their events.
And the next question is on to Rochelle.
Can you list as many predecessors as you know? How will you use them as a resource if applicable?
So I have Eli, Pat, Crisanto, Nate, Irene, Audrey, Danielle, Rachel, Layla, Alan Constantino. That's a valid friend. Anyways, I plan to use them as a resource. I think by maintaining that constant contact whenever I have a question. Sorry. Sorry. So just maintaining that constant contact with them whenever I have a question or like any concerns about like current cab or what's going on in the year. I know that I have the ability to communicate with Eli, Pat, and Crisanto directly because I have their contact information, and if I somehow can't get a hold of them or they aren't providing the answers that I'm looking for, then I know that I can find the previous president's contact information and reach out to them with any concerns that I have.
And then the next one is coming from Isaiah.
What could be a reason as to why someone would vote confidence in you? And what have you done to fix it?
I think I have two answers. The first one would be they accidentally misclick and put no confidence on vote.
You know what?
So my for real answer would be that they just haven't seen me around in PAC as much. I think, especially with the critiques I've received about not making my presence that known this year, I think that could be a valid reason why someone would vote me no confidence, but But even though I was not like a face, a face to the Gen members this year, I'd hope that my presence was still known through, for example, the Gen meeting slides, because I'm the one doing the Gen meeting slides, but I also like created them and decorated them to how I saw best fit. And I was also present during PCN. I was doing a dance, and I think just by also talking to a lot, well not a lot, I think just talking to especially the people that I saw all the time that came out to like Gen meetings and different events, I hope that they would at least see that I tried to make my presence known in some way, if not being the biggest presence in the room.
The next question is coming from Jazzy.
What is something that people misunderstand about you, and how does that affect the way that you lead?
I think I would go back to the critique I mentioned earlier about not having a voice. I personally feel like I had a voice this year within CAB. I'm not sure if it was really apparent, but I think it's apparent to all the hosts of the events when I would check in on them and be the one to start that conversation about how their events are going and the planning process, and even just checking in on things not related to their event. And as I said earlier, I feel like to have a voice is to have initiative, and I really think that I have that initiative to be that leader for everyone that everyone needs. And like I said in my speech, how I want to be that constant pillar of support for everyone. Just because I'm not the chattiest in the room doesn't mean that I won't speak. I think that's what's misunderstood about me, and it affects how I